Hello, everybody. My name is Jose Ome Masatal. Before we start our programming, I would like to do a land acknowledgement on one of my ancestral language, which is Nahuatl. Axcan nican oclan, tishoquequetzalticatej, Ijuan, nemitoh, ipan, Huehuey, Tlali, Itech, Huichin, Altepet, Chochenio, Oloni. Tikishmatic, in Polilistli, Itech, Altepec, Iwan, Titonawat, Ilucha, Ipampa, Itlactolo, Dignidad, Tlali, Ijuan, Libertad, Icon, Ometeotl. Here now, in Oakland, we found ourselves standing on an occupied land of the Huichin people, Chechenio Oloni. We don't forget the devastation of the land and the members of the Oloni people. We join their struggle, their history, dignity, land, and freedom. So be it, Ometeotl. Once again, hello everyone. My name is Jose Navarrete, and on behalf of Eastside Arts Alliance and NACA Dance Theater, we welcome you to Lair Virtual, Ancestral Knowledge, Art and Resistance. This series is a collaboration with World Art West. Tonight we have a pleasure and an honor to be talking with Dr. Victor Torres. But before we start at the event, I would like to ask you for some help. Try to share this event in your social media. We would like to have a moment for you to see if you can take the link of the program and put it in your outlets on social media. We will really truly appreciate it, because I think it will be an amazing conversation with Dr. Torres. So also, if you have any questions or any comments, please use our platforms. As we say, we are live streaming in Eastside Arts Alliance, NACA Dance Theater, and the World Art West Facebook platforms. So please, we would like to hear your comments, or if you have any questions for us. I think that's it for the logistics, and I would like to introduce. For me, it's a great pleasure to be working with World Art West, especially the executive director. She's my friend, and also she has a great experience working with the arts locally and nationwide, advocating for social equity. There is so much to say about her work, but I will pass it to her because she has so many things to share about her trajectory. Please welcome the executive director of the World Art West, An Juan.
Thank you so much, Jose. Much love back to you and everybody at the East Side and NACA as well. We're Arts West. We are just so honored to partner with Eastside Arts Alliance and NACA Dance to bring these cultural artists, social justice stories to light. For so many years through our San Francisco Dance Festival, we've seen many of them on our stage, and it's been amazing to hear their life stories, their advocacy journeys, their social justice fight and impact. Briefly, a little bit about World Arts West. We're a 42-year-old presenting service organization that serves the world's largest, so the largest world dance network in the United States. Over 450 dance companies, 20,000 artists representing over 100 cultures. And many of you know about our flagship program, San Francisco Ethnic Dance Festival. We also have a robust artist service program that provides cultural artists grant writer training, fiscal sponsorship, professional development workshops, and resource equity support. And if you like the program tonight, please go to World Arts West and make a donation at the amount of your choice. Any amount is super helpful. Tonight, I am so honored to interview Dr. Victor Torres, the director of Los Danzantes de Aztlán at Fresno State University. Dr. Torres will share Danzantes' arts and social justice journey and the power of Folklórico to reclaim cultural identity, as well as running the largest Chicano Latino university commencement ceremony in the United States. And now I want to welcome my dear friend, Dr. Victor Torres.
Thank you very much, Dr. Juan. I appreciate the invitation to participate in this wonderful cultural program. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Victor, I know you have a lot to share with us, your life story, and as well as Danzante's amazing journey. So I know we wanted to kind of start in the beginning, you growing up, your personal story. Can you tell us a little bit about growing up? Where did you grow up? How were you introduced to Folklórico?
For dance, yeah, I think that my story or my journey to with Folklórico, it's probably reflective of a lot of other Chicano Latino students. But I grew up in a town, Oxnard, in Ventura County. There was not many dances, folkloric groups at that time. It's, I don't remember very many. Um, and then I went off to school to UC Irvine, and my first exposure to folkloric dance was when my older brother Juan, who went to Irvine before me, he co-founded the group at UC Irvine, and when he graduated, we had a small gathering at my house at the house, and he brought some of his dancers, um, and they just kind of danced impromptu, right? And I was like, "What is that?" So that was my first really exposure for. I haven't seen somebody that I know like my brother dance, and I thought that was pretty cool. Um, but I didn't have a clue at that time of how important folklorico was gonna a role it was gonna play in my life. And so then I took off to UC Irvine, and one of the things that I speak a lot with my students is this idea that when I left Irvine, I noticed this lack of diversity. And so at the time when I was there, I think there was about 7% Latinx students on campus. So you go from a place that's almost 100%, 90% Latino, Mexican oriented, and then you go to a place like Irvine, which is very little, and then you start to sort of feel this sense of alienation and this disconnection with your culture and your home, your background. So I started searching for that connection, and so again, uh, Ballet Folklórico or Folklórico provided that connection to me. I sought out the the dance group that my brother co-founded with other dancers. So I went to their practice, and so like many other stories, it gave me a sense of belonging, and it provided like a second family for me. So then, little did I know at that time that it was going to be a life journey, right? A lifelong journey at the time.
Yeah. And Victor, is this is it a good time for us to
Sure.
share some of the
Yes.
photos and
Um, a little embarrassing. My students never seen this photo, so this
I know a lot of your students are watching tonight,
maybe embarrassing.
so I know
But
Debbie's got the order ready.
yeah, so this just we had humble beginnings. Obviously, a lot of groups in during that time. There was very little resources, so we if students groups did what they could. I'm in the middle with the black child over there, traje. um, Early part of my career. I think I was a freshman there in college, and then you can just go scroll through the pictures, and I just now that one's that's later on after maybe 4 or 5 years of dancing. I'm second to the my right, so yeah, that's me there.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and interesting story. If you go to the next person next to me to my right, amazing story. This is an amazing story. That is Dr. Saul Jimenez Sandoval, who is actually now the provost at Fresno State. And he's just been designated the interim president. So little did I know that I was sitting next to my future boss, standing there with him next to my future boss, the mero mero. And so I'm very happy, So I look back at the picture and like, wow, the stories we can tell about those people, right? That we danced with. Um, So I did that for a while. I did as an undergraduate, and I just couldn't let go. I continued as a graduate student. There's some dances there. I continued as a graduate student, and it was difficult because graduate studies, a PhD program is very intense and very. But I just couldn't give it up. It was part of me now. It became part of who I was. So I had to manage the time to do it. So I managed, and it was difficult, but I managed to be active with the dance group at Irvine and at the same time keep up with my work in the PhD program. It was a little tense, a lot of sleepless nights, but it was that thing that kept me going, right? It was something that took time, but at the same time kept me going, kept me grounded. Yeah, so there's actually, what, one of the things that I always cherish just a picture of my family at the time, because obviously Irvine's about an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours away. So my family could not always go to performances. And so there's one of the few performances that actually made the trek down to see me perform. And then my wife is to the left and the girl with the dress. We actually, met there. So, and she's also been engaged in teaching folklorico to kids as well. So I like that picture because it's always nice to see your family come and support you when you dance and perform.
Yeah.
And that's another group picture there.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
we could, so now I look at the picture now, I'm like, wow, that needs a lot of work, but that's what we could do at the time, right? Yeah. And actually, UCI actually had what they call the Dance International program, and so they would always invite us to perform, and that was a flyer they made. That's me in there. And so Irvine, I think, was one of the few institutions at the time that valued ethnic dance and international dance. So they had to show on a yearly basis. Now that's my young daughter. So I dance,
Oh.
and so this is the second generation. So folklorico became not just an activity that I did as a student or as to pass time. It's became part of my sort of trajectory in my life. So then now, I passed it on to my daughter. That's when she was young. She's older now, but I just show you that even when she was young, we wanted her to be involved in some folklorico. So she's in that jarocho dress. Um, and we can then my kids, you can just recycle through the pictures. Then my kids dance, all my kids dance. That's when they're young. They're older now. Um, but just show that folklorico became a way of life and center of our family. That's my son when he won a competition in Las Vegas. Um, and so they say that the family that prays together stays together. For us, is the family that dances together stays together. And I think that a lot of our family time. That's my wife with one of her kids groups several years back. She's always engaged. I don't know how she does it, but she's very patient with these kids, and she does a marvelous job working with small kids. So yeah, so it's taken over our lives, and it's a way of life for us, and not just a pastime, right? Activity we do.
Yeah.
And little did I know that choosing this path of folklorico would actually lead to having a career in it. I mean, that's what I'm doing now. I never planned. I never said I want to, get a job teaching folklorico. I never set out that wasn't a go. I just follow where sort of my heart was took me. Right, this is the journey, right? And because sort of studies was in medical anthropology, right?
All right.
And but I couldn't let go of this part of my of sort of my identity, right? My connection to my heritage. So um, I decided that I'm gonna just follow where it takes me. And so I tell students, if you find something you're passionate about, and if you're passionate and you commit yourself to it, good things will come of it. And so folkloric was that. I was passionate about it. It was important to me. I kept doing it, and it's led to opportunities that are very unique. Not everyone can make a living. Unfortunately, as you know, artists, the so-called starving artists, and so I feel very fortunate that I can make a living still engaging in folklorico.
Thank you, Victor. Before we go to the next section, just want to let you know the chat is blowing up all the way from Paderu. Can I get an autograph?
Who? Oh, Kadir. Oh, Kadir's an amazing dancer. And she's Hmong. And she's Hmong,
And
but she dances folklorico.
lots of people who are loving these pictures. To Andrea Spearman, yes, the family that dances together stays together.
Oh,
Okay, so
yes.
I know you're going to talk a lot about this sort of folklorical family. So before we talk about sort of your very very long trajectory with Los Danzantes, I know you want to talk to us a little bit about sort of history of folklorico, history of danzantes, how was it founded, how it's kind of intertwined with the political movement and all that.
Yeah, I think that you know, before I talk about Los Danzantes, it is one of the oldest major university groups in California. I know we battle with Northridge, Ballet Folklórico, that's line is we're about the same age. It started in like in 1970, but I think groups like Los Danzantes exemplify some of the principles of the Chicano movement, right? And those principles being self-determination, cultural pride, education, and community service. And we do all those in Los Danzantes Aztlán. But before we get into sort of going into detail about the Los Danzantes itself, I think it's important to contextualize why these groups flourished, right, throughout the Southwest and beyond the Southwest. I've known of groups now that from Kentucky, Wisconsin, Missouri, Kansas, Virginia, wherever there's a Mexican community, you're gonna find a Mexican dance group. Um, so here in Fresno, it's just blossoming. There's about 30, at least 30 in the city, maybe more than 50 in the county. And how I ended up in Fresno, you know, um, is because of Los Danzantes, right? It's the interest to work with this fabulous group. But let me back up a little bit and contextualize it, not only Los Danzantes, but Folklórico in general. Um, so we have to look back a little bit of history and to look at the sort of the intense systemic racism and oppression that Mexican Americans, people of Mexican orange or Chicanos experienced, beginning in 1848 after Mexicans became strangers in their own land after the end of the Mexican American War, right? After the signing of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, Mexicans that one day were living in Mexico as Mexicans became Mexicans, living in the United States. And with that, they lost a lot of their rights. They were subjected to intense discrimination and racism and marginalization. And that continued throughout the 40s and 50s. There you see um, examples of the type of oppression, right? We have white serfs, no Mexicans, right? No dogs, no Negroes, no Mexicans. So that continued up to and in the 1960s, Chicanos and Mexican Americans became discontented and wanted more, right? And they sought to sort of develop a sense um, of a positive identification and kind of reclaim their Mexican heritage in a positive sense. So folklorico became the title of my talk was, a weapon of resistance, and that's how we fought back, right? There was this pressure to assimilate, but the folklorico was also became an effective organizing and outreach tool. So it played an important role in the Chicano movement. And as you know, dance is not just for entertainment. It's always played an important social movement. For example, the Mexican Revolution and independence from Mexico, right? Because it engendered nationalism among Mexicans. So it has that element to it. So Mexicans, who long suffered, from this racism and marginalization, um, as a result from this cultural hegemony of the Anglo-American culture, and this attempt to Americanize them, because Mexican culture was perceived to be deficient, backwards, and actually a hindrance to progress. So we have examples of the Zutu riots, right, where Chicanos, Pachucos were beat up on the streets by U.S. sailors simply for wearing a Zutu, and then they would get beat up and they would get arrested, not the sailors. Then you would have the mass deportations, right? For example, Operation Wetback in the 1950s that deported about 7 million people of Mexican origin, although um, many of them were U.S. citizens or legal residents. Then you had forced dislocation, right? The Chavez Ravine, for example, an example of that, where families were removed forcibly from. There's a picture there in the slide where the families are being carried out. Yeah, there you go, by the officers. And so, if you ever visit Dodger Stadium, that's where that is. My daughter did a research project on that, and now when she looks at the Dodger Stadium and thinks of the Dodgers, she's thinking of this. So she doesn't see them. It's the same way anymore. Um, so, so given this context and given this anti-Mexican sentiment, right? It's no surprise Mexicans experience a self low esteem, right? And gotta had this inferiority complex, and so even the word Mexican was co-opted by um, by the dominant group to mean something negative, right? So somebody say you Mexican, well, they won't give you a compliment, and man, you Mexican, you backward, you fool, right? And so Chicanos at the time, they didn't want to associate with the term that had this pejorative meaning. Uh, and so I think that there was a search, right, for positive identification. And so I think a lot of Chicanos were rejecting, right, and were being punished as well for being Mexican or even speaking Spanish. And so that's why you see a lot of if you talk to kids, students, or just people in general who grew up in the 60s, 70s, the 40s. Their names were changed by the schools, right? I remember my brother's name, his name is Juan, and I remember he's, looking at a school picture when I was a little kid, and like it had John on there. And I'm like, who's John? And he's like, I don't know. They just call me John to school. Like, who's John? And so Jose becomes Joe. Guillermo becomes Bill. Um, and Victor Torres would become Vic Towers, I guess. And but the idea was that even parents would change their names. Even parents wouldn't teach their kids Spanish, not because they're ashamed of it, but as a defense mechanism, right? Because they didn't want their kids to be in trouble and be discriminated. So it was a defense mechanism. So I think one of the key goals of the Chicano movement was to counter this pejorative narrative, right, of the Chicano or the Mexican American by reclaiming and promoting self-identity. So then we go into the rise, right, of danzantes and folkloric groups in the 1960s, right, during the Chicano movement at the time. So in this search for a positive identification, see you see there the Chicanos pushing back in the pictures, right? It says, I am a Chicano. It talks about education, eradication, um, and so they walked out, right, in protest. And so Chicanos were in search of this positive identification, and so I think that's folklorico comes in, and it is during the Chicano movement, right, that folkloric groups were used to recuperate and promote their Mexican culture, right? This is work that was done by Dr. Nakara Ramirez, right? She looked at the social political dimensions of folklorico. And so folklorico became like a very public symbol of Chicanos' resistance to assimilation. So here in Fresno State, now I take it down to Fresno State. There you go. Fresno State had its own turmoil and racial conflict at the time. So in 1969, you got the interim president who came in and eliminated ethnic studies. Um, and at the time, the department was named La Raza Studies. It was part of ethnic studies. It was eliminated. And so there was a struggle, and students protested. You see in the next slide, you'll see that they're protesting and they go on a hunger strike. Okay, at Fresno State, fighting for their right uh, to be able to study, right, their history, their culture, their life's histories. And so, in this context of struggle and denial and feeling alienated, I think at Fresno State, Professor Martinez was one of the first professors that were rehired once they brought ethnic studies back. And so, he started when students felt isolated and unwelcomed, and so he felt that students were coming to him, wanting to learn more about their Mexican heritage and more about Mexican dance. So he couldn't do that in a regular class session. So that's why he started to meet with students at night, right? And that's the formation of Los Danzantes de Aztlán, because students wanted to, sort of, you know, they were looking for a sense of belonging, right? And this Ernesto Martinez, so Los Danzantes was formed and it became an important source of support and strength for the students at that time. And so I think here it's a good segue to show the video, a little bit of the beginnings of Los Danzantes de Aztlán. And you see Ernesto there talking about, um, why he formed it and so forth.
Why did you start the group?
Well, that's I've been asking myself that also.
Okay.
When I think about Ernesto, I think about a Chicano and one who reflected what the true meaning of Chicanismo is.
Yo me voy pa' La Habana y no vuelvo más, el amor de esa negra me va a matar. Yo me voy pa' La Habana y no vuelvo más, el amor de esa negra me va a matar.
Really provided structure and guidance to us during a time of turmoil, a time when we were not necessarily welcome here on this campus.
When I started teaching at Fresno State, there were students that were interested in learning more material than what I could teach in class. And so then we got together at night, and so because I couldn't teach this during the daytime. So, but it was just these students who wanted to expand their knowledge on Mexican dance. So I started getting together with them at night, and so I've been doing this for the last 20 years, and I haven't got paid for it either. On my own.
Well, it must be fun then.
Well, it must be. Keeps me in shape.
Escucha solo, este es un pregón que te va a tocar este nuevo son. Escucha solo, este es un tangueo que te va a tocar el repiqueteo. Escucha solo, este es un pregón que te va a tocar este nuevo son.
Yeah, this is a little bit of the history. And so I think that that's in Spokane, Washington, at the 1974 World Expo Fair. They had the privilege to perform. So I think that it kind of there's a short history there. Now, the unique thing about that is, you heard the dancers that interviewed. These are the former dancers, and they spoke about that feeling of alienation, right, and themselves. And when I talked to another student, ex danzante, one time, she said, I really appreciate what Ernesto did for us, because he was working in a place that did not want him, that did not want us, and he organized us as a group. We didn't have that cultural knowledge that we should have had. He just guided us. So I appreciate what he did. Another former member in the 1970s, she said, despite all the politics that existed on campus, we were the culture. Well, we were the beauty of our culture, even with all the turmoil around us. And so that's what Danzante provided for the students, right? This sort of order amidst the chaos, this beauty, within this awful turmoil. And so when I hear this ex Danzantes, talk that way, it just moves me. It's so powerful. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Torres. Just I have a few questions just regarding what you mentioned. I mean, I truly appreciate your acknowledgement of our ancestors. Some of them are our ancestors, or our family, our elders that have done so much contribution.
Right.
Just by us acknowledging them in our own local community, it's really powerful, and especially to bring some kind of identity. But I wanted to ask you. I love your quote about el zapateado. The zapateado is a weapon against assimilation, because I just feel it, and I think one of my experiences looking at your work has to do with this. We talk in our conversation about this sense of ensemble, or the concept of ensemble.
Right.
That has to do with that you put a lot of attention in the rigor of physical movement, but coming together, because I think sometimes I feel that this is the vehicle for us to work something together as a group. And I wanted to see if you can share with us a little bit your thoughts regarding that.
Yeah, I think ensemble work is important. Ensemble, I think is a French word that means together, right? To unity. So I think that that's characterizes, right, what Folklórico does, is to work together, to teach us collaboration and teamwork. It holds individuals accountable, and so I think that that's part of what we call in Chicano studies, personalismo, carnalismo, right? The sense of unity, the sense of mutual respect, not for what kind of degrees or education you have, but because of the type of person you are. Okay, so a lot of times Latino culture, Mexican culture, we tend to value people for who they are, not for what they do, right? And I think when we do that ensemble work, everybody's equal, right? Everybody has to sort of work together to be successful. And so I think and then Los Danzantes Aztlán, we work a lot on the ensemble work, right? So that it was uniform. Because if you have a group of dancers, and I say this to my dancers all the time, I can have the best dancers in the world, but if you're all dancing on different styles and adding your own little idiosyncrasies, it's gonna look messy on stage. It's not gonna look like you're united, right? group. So I think ensemble works. I think is characterized Los Danzantes, and it also carries out to real life. You know, if you can work together in a dance group and you mutually respect each other, then that carries out in real life. Okay, so it teaches that value to students about mutual respect and collaboration.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. It kind of makes me think about this idea of romanticizing a dance, a social dance or a cultural dance that, we romanticizes. Some of the participants, they think about like, oh, I want to be good. I wanted to, be the best of this particular dance. But for some reason, the impact that you have done in the Fresno community, it has other purposes.
Mhm.
And I wanted to see if you can, talk to us a little bit about that, because I don't think it has to do with virtuosity, which it has a little bit to do with virtuosity, but it's not virtuosity. It is beyond that I feel that I would like to see if you have any thoughts about it.
Oh, well, let me see if I can answer your question. I think that what one of the goals that I have is that, and the expectations, high expectations of my dancers to get it right. It's because we understand that we're not from that culture, right? Maybe I think I had this issue one time when I went to Congreso Mexico, and they were, and they were wondering, you know, how is it that that we can dance all these regions from different states if we're not from their states, right? Because in Mexico they tend to be that, like, if you're not from Jalisco, you shouldn't be dancing Jalisco. If you're not from Veracruz, you shouldn't be son jarocho. So, and so that concept is foreign for us here in the United States, right? Every folkloric group, we dance whatever. But in Mexico, this is a tendency that, you shouldn't. Like, for example, if I go to Jalisco, I shouldn't perform Jalisco, because that's be disrespectful to a people in Jalisco, right? Because I'm not from there, in a sense. But to get to the question is, I always feel that you have to respect, right? Um, the 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 art form, the dance form, um, because if you don't, then it becomes, like you said, just a romanticized version of it, and just for kind of what Dr. Nakara Ramirez calls folklorisms. I mean, like fake lore, right? You're just engaging in something for consumer consumption. And so I think that I try to sort of convey and be respectful to the style and tradition of the dances, because I think, as I mentioned, previously, is you never know when somebody from that culture, from that state, from that pueblo is in the audience. Okay, and if you dance it in a way that doesn't convey the essence of the beauty of their culture, their music, or their style, then you're disrespecting them. And I think it's one of the reasons that me, as a group director, I tend to stay away from danzas as much as possible, because I feel that danza danza is not for commercial purposes, right? It has a religious connotation and it's a way of life. And I always feel like I'm not really comfortable doing it, because then I'm commercializing it, and disrespecting danzas, right? And so I stay away from danzas for that reason, because I think it's important to sort of maintain some boundaries, right, within what is acceptable by the people who actually practice those dances. Um, um, but I think I might have forgot your question.
Well, it's just like I feel like there is, so, I mean, you mentioned it, that there is a deep sense of community.
Yeah.
And because you, at that time, that when the origins of Los Danzantes started, it was a very tumultuous, toxic
Right.
situation for our community. But for them to come together as a radical act of making community, it was a radical act at that time, and because of you bringing that knowledge of folklorico, or preserving that knowledge of folklorico, it became another thing. It wasn't became like, okay, I wanted to perform. It became like a sense of radical,
Sure.
yeah, a radical action of building community, that it
Right.
was very important in Fresno particularly.
And Fresno's in particular, I think that that I think I see those difference. You know, the danzantes that started with los danzantes in the 1970s during the turmoil time when they formed out from this toxic environment. They still get together now. I mean, they have reunions, you know, because their bonds were forged during this difficult time. Whereas I think when groups are formed, there's nothing wrong with them, not judging them for just entertainment purposes, and that's fine. But they don't form this close bonds because, in other words, they weren't they weren't like, you know, guerreros, warriors together fighting for. Remember, these dancers were fighting to reclaim their heritage, and
Mhm.
if you don't have that motivation, then it takes on a different meaning to you. It becomes more like I like it because I'm Mexican. But for these dancers in the 1970s, it was had so much more like of an intrinsic value to it, right? It's the what we call the ethic work that is engaging in activity that reaffirms, reclaims your race and culture, right? So to dancers in the 60s and 70s, that's what they were doing because they were pushing back against this cultural hegemony by the dominant culture. And I think nowadays it's become more popular just to be social, but um, yeah, it's important to be grounded. That's why I was drawn to Ernesto because that was Ernesto's motivation.
Mhm.
Okay. That was Ernesto's motivation. His thing was he's dancing because he wants to promote Chicanismo and Chicano culture, and he wants to make sure that the students know that they have value, right? That their culture matters, that their language matters, that they matter. So when I met him, I was like, this guy's radical, but I like that, it drew me to him. And but things change over time. So, he became an all radical but he never refused. I mean, he was never apologized for being, Chicano, and he was always getting out of our cages. I don't know what's wrong with you young Chicanos. You guys don't do, so as I was lecturing us about not carrying the water and being as committed, as he was hoping to us back in the day. But I do say I look at Ernesto, and I also describe my dancers as revolutionaries many times, right? Um, and so you know when he passed, I sort of was spoke at his one of his gatherings. Um, I talked about Ernesto as the guerrero, and I came across a quote from Che Guevara, right, the revolutionary from Latin America, and he says, and I thought it was meaningful to me because I was using Che like Ernesto was Che, and Che says, I don't care if I fall as long as someone else picks up my gun and keeps on shooting, right? And I thought to myself, you know what, Ernesto, I'm willing to pick up that gun. That means the dance shoes. And I'm willing to continue shooting, right? That is, continue resisting this assimilation. So, and my students, my dancers, I picked up that gun that Ernesto dropped, and we're continuing the struggle that he started. So I've read that quote, like, man, that's it. Ernesto, it fell. I picked up his shoes, his gun. We're keeping shooting. That's our dancing, and to promote the culture, right? And this reclaiming of our heritage. So I like that about him, And so yeah. So to me, it has folklorico is just and has this intrinsic value that other activities don't have. Okay, um, and so I think about a quote from Vasconcelos, right? He's a Mexican philosopher and educator, and I think in outside of the UNAM, the University of Mexico, the National, what is it, Autónoma de Mexico? It's the
So,
major, most
Universidad
important university.
Autónoma de México, sí.
Yeah, it's the most prestigious university in Latin America, and on there he has a plaque. There's a plaque that says, por mi raza habla el espíritu, right? For my people will the spirit speak, right? And I sort of thought about folklorico. I was, yeah, folklorico groups are that spirit that speaks for the community now, right?
Mhm.
And so that's why I see folklorico is we're the spirit that speaks for the community. And so and that's kind of my motivation. That's what drives me, even during difficult times. And sometimes you want to, get tired and all these practices and all these performances and the stress and the students, but I always come back to this, folklorico is a spirit that speaks for the community. And that's why I saw it. So I'm just hoping that over the last 24 years, that Ernesto was smiling and not frowning on me during this time. But yeah.
Wow, Victor, this is so beautiful. And I know that you brought some photos and videos to show
Sure.
us about, now we're talking about your
Yeah,
generation,
my
right? Los
generation of dancers.
Danzantes
Sure.
under you, spiritual, revolutionary, community service, education. Should we ask Debbie to come in with
Sure.
the
Sure.
photos and videos, and you can tell some stories of Ernesto's, this is Danzantes with Dr. Torres.
I threw that picture in there because and I show this in my class when I talk about ethnic identity formation, and because I didn't know at the time, but when I was doing that picture, that's what I was doing. I was trying to reclaim some sense of my identity, being that I'm outside my comfort zone, right? I left school. This is at UC Irvine, right? This is the dorm room and UC Irvine, and somehow I just converted it to my barrio, because I was wanting some sense of connection. And so yeah, I converted to like my little community. I had a newspaper on the walls, it says Los Vatos de Irvine, and all the dorm residents could write down there, and then I dressed up some of those people and something that looks halfway decent for a cholo, I guess, and we did that. So yeah, I'm in the bottom right kneeling, and because I think I thought I was just messing around that time, but I wasn't. I think I was really searching for some kind of connection, right? Some kind of belonging. So I started off like this, but then I ended up, instead of dressing like this, I ended up dressing in a costume to dance folklorico, right? So that's what I sort of ended up doing. So I went from this to folklorico was a better way to connect and reclaim my heritage, and so I did that. So yeah, you can go to the next picture. I don't know what's next. That's Ernesto. Right? In practice, you know. And yeah, what's the next one? Yeah, that's during Ernesto's time. So you see at the time, he was young, students were motivated, uh, they practiced where they could. I love seeing those old pictures, of these dancers, they just put on the shoes, and now we try to be more professional. And no, I still have those suits, some of those suits. And so when I run to the old danzantes, I said, "You want to try to see if it still fits you?" And so like, no, they don't want to take that challenge. And so here's a piece of 1973, a Showtime International Showcase. So here's just trying to show a little bit about the important events that Los Danzantes have performed. There's another picture there. There's Ernesto. There's another one spoken in Washington. It's just open pictures of ex Danzantes. This is Ernesto there. Um, and I think that was not 70s, but maybe mid 80s. And that's actually his reunion of all his ex dancers, and that's, remember I told you they still get together. I think that's the only generation that I know that still gets together. I don't know if the people from the 80s or the 90s, or 2000 get together, but that's the only one that I know that they still get together. And that's Ernesto. One of the last pictures I took with him during he got the Legacy Award for his work and Chicano studies. And so uh, yeah, I think he passed just not long after that. Um, special achievement for Los Danzantes. In 1989, they were deemed official representative of the university because of that work that they did in recruitment and promoting diversity. So that we're still the only group that I know of in any campus that has this distinction of being official representatives of the group. And this is more later. That's like late 80s, late early 90s, a group. And then this one is special because on the top, you can see that it says that we're dancing with the Ballet Folklórico de Stanford. And this is during when was directed by Dr. Susan Cashin, which is a very, very iconic figure when it comes to folklorico in California. And there she is. She's the one in the white blouse. She came to one of the festivals that we organize here at Fresno State. She gave a lecture. Now, this is a very important picture because you have the gentleman to the right, John Estrada. He's the founder of what is known as DUF, Danzantes Unido Festival, and so it still exists today. And so, very important figure. Then you have Rosy Peña, who started dancing with Padua Hills in 1930s. Chela Holguín Hinojosa danced in with Samaripas in LA. Very important resource for Chicanos. Then you have Dr. Susan Cashin as well. So this is a very special picture. These are the icons in the folklorico in California. Some of these. And then you have the next section, which is the highlight for my generation. Some of the key achievements. Now, one of the things that I focus on is using folklorico, not only as an artistic tool, but as a tool to promote higher education, right? Ernesto's thing was get kids Chicanos to go to school. So to that end, I've developed and along with my students, we've created this different programs. Go to the previous section. That's the one what you should have the like that proclamation. We see the proclamation. Yeah, that section.
Yeah.
That section. Yeah. And so I just had that on there because again, and this is the president's proclamation where they reaffirmed Los Danzantes status as an official ambassador of the university. This is in the 2012, 2013 again. And it talks about all the contributions that Los Danzantes have made. So that was pretty special to us. Then you had that's when we performed in the San Francisco Ethnic Dance Festival in 2016.
Wow.
Picture of the College of Fine Arts. I love that picture. And then the Paletero wanted a picture with us, so we said, we had the Paletero join us, and so that was special. We had a good time. Now this is very special, and you, Dr. Juan, you helped me with this. This is Los Danzantes de Tlaloc from Central High School. Directed by the Maestra Rosa Gonzalez. So, that program, directed by Maestra Rosita, is an important sort of pipeline for me in Danzantes. And I think that she's a very good maestra. And so she supports the arts, and she took the kids to see the auditions for the San Francisco Dance Festival because they couldn't afford to do the regular show. And so you helped us through a sponsor, and the sponsor actually paid for a bus to take them in some other high schools to see the actual show. And then again, because our goal was to promote higher education, my nephew Laris, who's a student there at Cal, he organized a tour for them. And so this is the picture of them in front of the iconic, Berkeley campus. And then some of my dancers went there. You see some of my dancers dressed in white shirts to the right. And there's another one. We teach dance during the yearly Chicano Youth Conference. There's a workshop that I teach to teach dance. So we're constantly doing things besides just preoccupying ourselves with big shows, right? That's Esteban teaching the high schools during the High School Summit. And so we're constantly thinking about not only major shows like the San Francisco Ethnic Dance Festival. That's me when I can kick that high. But I was thinking about how we can use folklorico, right, to achieve some of the important social goals like education and parity. And so I love that picture. This is Lupita Romo Ramirez, only because, she's dancing with the horse. The horse is actually her partner, right? The negro was dancing, and that's a dancing horse. And so, like the horse was her partner. So the dance was dancing around her. It was a beautiful scene, very special during that time. So I think that, yeah, I love that. That's during the festival that we have on campus. But we do the high school summit, and I think there's a video from YouTube that describes what that high school summit is about. But basically, we try to get students to come to campus to inform them and motivate them to go to college, but using dance, right? All these high school students are dancers. They're passionate about dance. So the idea is let's take their passion, right, that they have for dance, because remember, to be successful, you have to have the passion, you have to have the commitment, and you have to have the drive. Those are the same things you need to be successful in school. So I figured, let's transfer those skills they already have, and let's transfer them so they can do well in school and get an education. I think
Did you want us to play this video right now?
That's the summit.
The goal of the Danzantes de Aztlán Folklórico Summit is to use Folklórico to promote a higher education. Clovis, Fresno, and even Bakersfield High School students came to spend a day at Fresno State, not only to dance but also to know the school.
Because we want to expose them to the college campus and the college environment so they can get a feel of what it's going to be like, so they can envision themselves here on campus, and so they want to pursue a higher degree. And
they spend half of the morning practicing different types of folklorico dances. They also had a college presentation to learn more about the school and know about all the programs and degrees they can get at Fresno State.
I like to teach Folklórico is because I feel like it's a good way to reach with students and kind of teach us the culture of where we come from and the different types of regions that are part of Mexico.
Students like to dance folklorico because they can connect to their root.
I love Folklóricos because it helps me be in touch with my roots. And what I enjoy the most is just being part of a big group that we all share the same passion.
After hours of practice, high school students are now going to perform here at the South State Union.
So this is up there. Yeah. So what happens is this work actually is it's a journalism student. So there's a class where students have to do a video project, and for some reason, well, I know the reason because I guess we're more captivating is a lot of the students choose to do their story on what we do, right? So they're constantly coming, interviewing us, interviewing my students. So I thought, you know what, this is the student that came to do her project, and she did it on the High School Summit, and she captures what we do it and why it's important, right? To promote higher education. And so we're doing that. We have the Cal State show, which is the California State University Folklórico show. Again, that's designed to sort of bring the different universities together and bring high school students to see it, so they can see it and say, look, I want to dance. I like dancing, and I want to go to college. And there's 5-6 groups. Which one can I choose to go to, right? And so again, the goal is to promote higher education. So we have multiple things that we do besides just, again, preoccupying ourselves with the artistic aspect of it. So I love my students because it's a lot of work for my students as well. Okay, they're committed. I always say to be a danzante, it's a special person because it's not just about going to rehearsal and performing. It's about going to rehearsal, helping organize the summit, helping organize the festival, helping organize the Cal State show, right? And so it's a lot of work, and it's a really committed group of individual students. So I'm really lucky that of the quality of students that I've been able to get. Really lucky with the assistants student assistants that helped me as well. I think there was a video of the kind of it's called LDA brief bio, which kind of shows a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and while Debbie's setting up the video, I must read you this comment, Dr. Torres, from Rosita Gonzalez Madrigal.
Oh,
thank you again, Dr. T. Arts is helping Central High School students. One of my students applied to Cal because of that trip. That one of the photos we saw was accepted and is now enrolled. Thanks to all of your efforts. Her main name is Maura Cruz.
Wow. Amazing. That's an amazing
Rosita,
story.
For sharing that story. Thank you.
See that is why we do this work. Exactly why we do work. Even if it's just one person that gets in, you never know who's going to be inspired within the group. So I'm so glad that she told me that, because it makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad.
And for the audience watching, please continue to come in with questions and comments. We're going to extend the program a little bit, maybe about 10 minutes or so. So did you want to show us another video?
I think I wanted to show you just a brief bio, because I think that's kind of encapsulates everything that we do. It tells a little bit about us. So, we
Wow.
say, we have a saying, once a danzante, always a danzante, because remember, it becomes part of who you are. It's not something like, like a soccer player, you play and then you leave. No, danzante, you come in here and it becomes who you are. You carry that with you into the future.
Mhm. Well, Maestro, Doctor, it's really great. It's so great. All the amazing connections and bonds that you have created with the community. Thank you so much. I have one last question. It's a personal question, but I would like to see if you have any shares, any comments for this. I am really interested in this idea of circling back, thinking about the ancestral land, but also how is the circle back to the land. But it has to do with this idea of, I feel that folklorico groups in the United States are very sophisticated. I mean, they are kind of influence even the motherland, the folklorico dances in Mexico, because of I think because of your intention, the intention of your work. And I wanted to see if you have any experiences feeling that you have impacted even the folklorico culture in Mexico because of the work that you do outside of Mexico.
Well, I feel like it'd be presumptuous of me to say that somehow I impacted the folklorico in Mexico, but I would say that in terms of circling back, what has happened every once in a while is you find students, not necessarily mine, but others, where the student does circle back because they go back to Mexico and study, right? So somehow they're exposed to it and they end up in Mexico studying with the maestros, and then they come back and teach us. Now, in terms of have an impact, I just know that um, we've, I would like to say that we make them better sometimes, right? Because they, at one point, um, we were as the pochos. We were the pochos, the kind of the Americanized Mexican Americans who don't know what they're doing. And but I think that folklorico has developed so much here in the United States that the quality has increased so much that now I think Mexican groups are sort of elevating their standard, right? Because they don't want to be left behind, or they don't want to happen what happened when we competed at Mexico and in Rosarito, right? We competed, we went there, and we ended up winning second place, right? I told you the story. We ended second place, and they just offended all the other Mexican groups to the point where, like I told you, they were like attacking the judges, and it was a mess. But I think the lesson they took from that is, we can't assume that we're better than American groups because they're Americans, right? Because guess what? We dance with the same passion, remember? So it's the passion and the drive that's more important than whether you're 100% Mexicano, whether you're from Mexico or not. I think it's the passion and the drive that you have. And maybe the circling back is Mexicanos, maybe that we have to dance with the same passion. And I'm not saying they don't, but I'm saying is being in Mexico and Mexican culture and dancing folklorico, it's almost a given. It's almost like something you do automatically, right? We're here in the United States, we dance folklorico on purpose, intentional, right? And so I think that sometimes that conveys on the stage, right? That conveys with the passion that they see. And so I've had like groups that, come and look at my group, Los Danzantes, like, wow, I didn't expect that. And one of the common comments is not about the technicality of it, right? It's about the passion of the students. It's that, man, your students dance with like passion. I never seen students, dance that way with that kind of motivation and energy. And they say, I wish my dancers in Mexico would dance that way, right? It's because it's almost like a chip on the shoulder that my dancers are dancing that way. It's, it got to prove something. This is, remember, a weapon of resistance, right? And so they dance with the attitude. And I think that's what carries, right? Them.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, the thing is, like, it's very interesting because I think the life of an immigrant, or the life that people that choose to be living in this country have the time and the space to reflect on what it left behind.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think and I think for me it was like a lot of realization, like, oh my God, this is like my culture. So like it's like reinvigorating, recontextualizing my identity through all the work, all the culture that you have done. But at the same time, also when you are in Mexico, you don't have that reflection because you are living in that culture.
Yes, exactly.
And I think there is like, oh, what's happening? Like, what's happening? What are the ingredients that I don't have to create that passion because I am embedded in the culture? So I think that's the thing that I'm seeing that is very powerful for us doing the work of, outside our motherland, to go back and say like, but this is powerful because we are able to reflect on what we don't have. And that creates a tremendous passion.
No, you're absolutely right. And I totally agree. I think that's, maybe technically, they might be superior to us, but I think with the passion, I think we might outdo them with the passion and ganas, because for the reasons I mentioned, it's just not dancing for us. It's connecting with our histories, connecting with our heritage, right? In Mexico, when you dance, you're not connecting with the heritage, right? Because you're there. But here, like you said, trying to reconnect, this redefining, right, definition that process that takes place. So yeah, I mean, I have some really dancers, like Esteban. All my dancers, are they just go out there and they just leave it on the stage, and so I really admire them and respect them for that reason. But so I think, I mean, I just think for me, just to close up, when I think about dance and I think about why I do it, and I heard a maestro one time say, and I agree with that, dance, it's what is it? Alimenta nuestro espíritu, right? Dance nurtures our soul, right? And I think that's the way I see it, that's why I can't leave it. I need that nutrition. I need that, that food, the sustenance to keep coming. And so dance does that for me, so, as Maestra Rosita knows, in Congresos de Mexico, there's a slogan. It says, todo por la danza, everything for dance, right? I mean, you have to commit, it's a total commitment, right, to dance. And that's the way I feel. And I hope that I'm able to convey that to my students. And I just hope that, just like Ernesto had impact on his students. I'm hoping that, down the line, maybe one or two students, I've had impact on their lives, and through the mentoring and that takes place. And because I can see how Ernesto had impact on his students, and like, wow, if I can have that much impact on students, that'd be great. I can die happy.
Well, wow, these are great reflections. I know, Dr. Torres, you have another set of sort of reflection photos, videos you want to kind of share, and I know you definitely want to talk about the commencement ceremony, which is, I think, the largest Chicano Latino commencement ceremony in the United States. Yeah,
I know.
Do you want Debbie to kind of quickly run through the?
Well, I think that, but you know what? That graduation is linked to Los Danzantes, right? And this is again, I'm going to Ernesto Martinez. Almost everything Ernesto Martinez still exists today, right? Los Danzantes de Aztlán exists today. He started the group at Sama High School. That still exists today. He helped start this group in Roosevelt High School. That still exists today. He helped Clovis High School. That still exists today. Then you have the Asociación Nacional de Grupos Folklóricos, the National Association of Folkloric Groups. He was a co-founder for that. That still exists today, And then you have this graduation. He was actually one of the professors that helped students organize this in the 74, right? So he was on the committee that helped organize this with the student leaders. And Danzantes, performed the very first one and has continued to perform in those years. So we kind of linked together, So everywhere I go, I can't get away from Ernesto. He's always with me somehow.
All right, is this the commencement?
Yeah, that's commencement, yeah.
Chicano Latino Commencement Celebration. As the coordinator of this awesome FIDME event, I can tell you that it is a magnificent culminating experience and a recognition of your hard work.
Por la mañana, rosa mi cara, cuando los campos
la feria de San Marcos, del Merito Aguascalientes.
Filled with culture and music and jam-packed with family and friends, it is the largest Chicano Latino graduation celebration in the country, with over 14,000 people there to celebrate you.
Estírense bien, dale, otra
Look at that amazing wave.
otra vuelta más. Una más, vuelta.
The energy and enthusiasm is electrifying. We do all this to celebrate your and your family's sacrifices. So don't give up. Adelante.
Get on, congratulate all the newest Bulldogs. So you're ready to move your tassel from the right to the left. Congratulations. Congratulate your parents for all their help and support. Un aplauso a los padres, a los abuelos, a los tíos, a los hermanitos. Buscando abrigo y no.
So I think that at the end, I think when let me just, I guess the final thing is the question I want to answer is the one you asked me last time is how do I end up in Fresno? Okay. And the reason I ended up in Fresno is two things. Los Danzantes de Aztlán and that commencement. When I came to visit the campus, 95 or 94, Ernesto Martinez took me to this commencement, and I'm like, "Whoa! I never see so many Latinos, Mexican Americans in one place celebrating education." So I was impressed with Los Danzantes de Aztlán, and I was impressed with the commencement. And I think that at the end of the day, the story. I've never thought I'd end up in Fresno, right? So you go to these prestigious universities and you get a little hot tea, you go to, and so going to Fresno, Cal State was not in my plans, but Ernesto I met at a conference, and I guess we connected. He connected with me, and he started recruiting me for 2-3 years. Hey, when are you gonna finish your doctorate? Want to anyways, last thing I wanted to do is end up in Fresno. I didn't not want to end up in Fresno, and so finally convinced me to visit. Why don't you give us a visit? And so I came to visit, and I came to the commencement, right? And Los Danzantes performed the commencement. I was like, wow! I was blown away by the quality of the Los Danzantes. I was impressed by the commencement, because at that moment it felt like you were home, right? There was hundreds of people, but it was intimate, right? It had the sense of intimacy, despite the fact that it was so large. So you saw those 14,000 people, but it felt like home for everybody. It feels like you're within family, a 14,000 large family. So I ended up here because I made the choice that I should show. My decision was based on not what the location was like, but what the type of work I would be doing. And so when I talk about Los Danzantes being a great recruiting tool for students, well, I also happen to recruit me, right? And that's why I'm here, right? And so it's like I said, I never planned this, but you just gotta follow the passion and follow the opportunities, and you end up where you should be, maybe. Now, if you have just a few minutes, if you show the other picture, because I really want to highlight the graduation. There's several of my danzantes are graduating. I really want to highlight that because that's the goal, right? That's the goal that I have as an educator. Okay, and so I really want to highlight some of the students that exemplify the dual goal of this graduation in 2019. There's 3 danzantes right there. Then you have the other ones. Now, the reason I had this is because the little boy started when he was 3 years old, and you go to the next picture and he's still dancing, right? That's him, right? And then you go to the next picture and you have those 2 young ladies in the front with the green and pink. And then you go to the next picture, and they're there, right? And so the whole idea is that it becomes a lifelong thing for them, right? It's something they commit to because it speaks to them, right? And there's that couple there when they're little kids. The next one, that's their, the couples at that graduation, right? And so it's just amazing that, the commitment that the students have and what it means to them to continue dancing after this time. And then I think I have some graduation pictures. You can skip that one, go to the next one, because I don't want to run out of time. That's my son and daughter, but let's go to the graduation, maybe right there. That one right there. So here's back in the day, that's two of my assistants when they graduated. That's Lupita Romo Ramirez and Ray Ramirez, and I'll tell you a little bit about them in a second. So they graduated. The next group, it's always satisfying to see these students graduate, right? Because that's the goal. You're sad because you don't want to see them leaving. There's another group in 2018, right? Graduating. Now, in that picture, you see Esteban. Esteban here. He gave me the honor of hooding him on stage. And so that's me in the back, put on his hood. And then you see the next stage, that's another Juvenal Juvi graduating. And so then you have going back to Ray Ramirez. Now he's Dr. Ray Ramirez, right? So he just got his EDD doctorate last year, I think. So you see him as an example of what we want, right? He came in as a junior college transfer, blossomed at Fresno State, he's a great maestro and folklorico himself. And he pursued his higher education. Now he's doing great work in the JC level. And then they have other pictures of people with master's degrees as well. And that's the ultimate goal, right? When you can merge folklorico with education, and these graduates sort of exemplify that, right? Yeah.
I feel just so speechless, Dr. Torres. It's just like I am so moved. We prepare for quite a bit of time to arrive at today, and I'm still so overwhelmed by the stories you share, by your heart, by who came before you and who have come after you.
Yeah.
And who they will become in the next 50 years of Danzantes and beyond, And I know many of folks who are listening tonight are so inspired. And because we're recording this interview, I know as we share tonight's interview on various platforms, we cannot even begin to imagine at this moment the kind of impact and inspiration your story tonight will have for generations to come. So I just, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for being here with us tonight. What a wonderful, wonderful closing to the Life Arts and Resistance partnership series with Eastside and NACA. Just beyond moved. Thank you so much. Want to thank you for being here, and thank you, Jose, Debbie, Christine, Juan.
Yeah, I want to thank you for the opportunity and the patience, and that you sort of exhibited with me trying to organize these photos and videos. So I appreciate the opportunity, and I feel the one that's privileged to be working with committed artists like yourselves. Okay, and Jose, I love your questions. I love the way you think about the art and the dance. Really, really philosophical. I love it. I love it.
No, thank you so much, Maestro. It's a great pleasure, and you are a semillero. You are spreading so many seeds for our community, for the well-being of our community.
Yeah, thank you.
I truly appreciate that. We seguimos adelante. We are here and we are not leaving. And hasta la victoria siempre. Thank you so much.
Hasta la victoria siempre. Eso es. That's it. And so I want to thank you and your audience once again for your patience and for listening in.
Yeah. We hope before we end, we would like to thank our amazing interpreters,
yes,
Christine and Juan, that they have been doing like quite an amazing work, bringing other communities together. And thank you so much. Also, on behalf of Eastside Arts Alliance, we are a small organization in East Oakland that also, we believe in self-determination, and that we can gain and find our way of living here in a different way. without being assimilated. So I thank you, my co-workers, my community, Eastside Arts Alliance, and thank you so much, Anwang. It has been a great pleasure bringing quite an amazing, truly, deeply committed artists working with our communities here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night, and yeah, please share the videos.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night.